Okay, good morning, folks. This is Jacqueline Kemp with the Oregon Department of Education, Charter School Program Grants. And we are here today, September 20th, to talk about the planning grant applications and what's involved with applying for a planning grant. Today we will cover a variety of things. It's a full hour of information. This broadcast will be recorded, so you can go back and look at it on our website. So we're going to cover today what the purpose is of the grant according to the federal charter school programs, eligible applicants, the planning grant eligibility and the available funds, how the funds might be used, participation, evaluation, and reporting, the review process that your application will go through, how the award process works, the submission process and all that's required, and the actual documentation itself. At the end of our webinar, we will have a question and answer period. So let's get started. The purpose of the Education Department grant to the states was authorized by the Title V, Part B of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. This is to expand the number of high-quality charter schools across the nation. The purpose of Oregon Charter School Program grants, as we're looking at today, are the planning grants. We are going to provide funds to post-award free operational charter schools that are in the development phase. These will support schools that will increase educational equity, improve quality of new charter schools through intensive incubation period. We also have grants that we are releasing for implementation, expansion, and strengthening of the authorizer quality. Okay, what is a charter school? A charter school is a school that conforms to the federal definition of public charter schools, and you can find that in the ESEA with the citation there for you. The charter school must be governed by a nonprofit board that is separate from its authorizing board, and it may not be composed of voting members from the authorizing board, so they must be separate. The charter school developer must conform to the federal definition of the developer in the ESEA citation given for you. So questions on that, look up those citations. It will give you a complete definition. Okay, so for an applicant to be eligible for the OCSP Planning Grant, you must have been approved by an authorizer and not yet have opened. Applicants in the final stages of a potential authorizer decision may apply, but you must be approved by the authorizer within 30 days of submitting your application. So in other words, just the final vote or question and answers, whatnot. Once selected, subgrantees must provide an executed and signed final contract between the subgrantee and the authorizer within 90 days of the award. These planning grants can be up to $100,000 for a one-year term. We're looking to award up to 4 grants this year. Okay, what kind of funds? They're on a reimbursement basement. So this means that the subgrantee must be able to expend the funds and submit for reimbursement with proof of expenditures all listed. What is allowable in the post-award planning and design of educational programs. So this includes things like refinement of your desired educational results, refinement of methods for measuring progress towards achieving these results, professional development of teachers and other staff who will be working in the charter, the initial implementation, the kind of pre-startup of the charter school, which is informing the community about your school, acquiring necessary preliminary equipment and educational materials and supplies, and acquiring or the developing of curriculum materials for your school. Other initial costs that can't be met by other state and or local sources. Okay. Two big things that are not allowed is the purchasing or leasing of any kind of facility. Costs relating to preparing and submitting this application cannot be reimbursed through the grant. So the participation requirements are that you can show demonstrating eligibility, that the funds will be used according to federal guidelines, complying with reporting requirements and due dates, attending required trainings and meetings associated with this grant, and participating in professional development focused on culturally responsive education practices and school culture. Okay, so your application for the subgrant funds indicates that you acknowledge and consent to these contingencies. Okay, for our evaluation, ODE is responsible for evaluating subgrants to ensure that they adhere to federal guidelines and regulations and accomplish their goals. Evaluation will be specific to the goals that you've identified and the expectations set in the approved subgrant application. Any charter school that is substantially failing to meet its goals or fulfill its approved program will either be placed on a rigorous plan of improvement or, in severe cases, may be defunded. In addition to other requirements, the continuing receipt of subgrant funds will be contingent on a charter school complying with its contract with its authorizer and applicable state and federal laws. Okay, your reporting requirements. As a subgrantee, you will be required to submit to ODE the executed contract with the authorizer for the operation of the charter school. You have to demonstrate compliance with the contract with the authorizer at all times during the grant period. You will need to file an annual financial report within 90 days following the grant fiscal year. This report must be filed in a form and manner which is determined by ODE, and we will supply the template for that. You will also be responsible to file a final grant report within 90 days of the end of the grant year. This report must be filed in a form and manner determined by ODE. Once again, we will supply the template. The report will contain the following: an executive summary, a final report on each grant project goal, okay, including data that is both qualitative and quantitative, the information that supports each goal's outcomes. An expenditure report that details 100% of the awarded grant fund expenditures and includes a property inventory of all equipment and non-consumable goods purchased with the CSP grant funds. This also includes all serial numbers for any electronic type devices. You will submit all reports, reimbursement requests, and any other required information electronically. All grantees will be required to purchase an approved feeding document scanner for this purpose. So the award process, what does that look like? Okay, so each application will be peer reviewed. Pre-award letters will be sent to the subgrantees and their authorizer. In this letter, we'll request any information that might be required before the final approval. Any additional required information must be submitted within 30 days of the date of the grant award letter. Okay, the grant award notification, known as the GAN. This is an official and final notice of award. This will show your award amount and includes all federal and state regulations governing this grant. Okay, note, funds may not be spent or encumbered until the grant has received final approval. So the submission process, we released the grants last week on the 14th, and the deadline is October 28th. We do ask that you submit an intent to submit an eligibility form at least 4 weeks prior to the submission of your application. This way we can have those peer reviewers lined up and ready to go. Okay. There is a link here as well as in the RFA for you to submit that application to. Okay. So there's part 1, part 2. The appendices should all be uploaded as separate documents so they can each be opened independently. Okay, what are the required elements of this application? Okay, there's a cover page with original signatures. There's the project narrative, 25-page maximum on this. So you have an executive summary to start, which is not to exceed 1 page. There'll be the general information, mission of your school, the capacity of your development team and governance, your 3 identified project goals, your budget narrative, your professional development goals and plans for your staff, and how you will meet the needs of historically underserved students. So part 3, the appendices, has all of your budget form, evidence of your proposal approved by an authorizer, your school budget for a 3-year period. The purpose of this is to see if the school is able to sustain itself once they've gotten underway. Your charter school enrollment policy, including your lottery protocol, your procurement policy, your marketing plan, your grant management plan, and then there's an assurance and certification form that will need to be completed. We have specific format that we want all grants to come in. So it's all supposed to be done on typical letter size paper, 8 by 5 by 11 inches, using the indicated point and font types listed here. The narrative must address, and these must be in sequence in each section that was listed above. State each part and section number and title in bold. Part 2, the project narrative must not exceed 25 total pages. You're to number all pages, but note, do not use a table of contents page or divider pages. So the cover page and the assurance and certification form must include original signatures. You use scanned copies to send them in to us, but you must maintain all original documents on site in your school files. They could be asked for to look at in any kind of a monitoring visit. Okay, we do not want to see any curriculum or invoices or any other documentation not specifically required in the project narrative or appendices. Okay, so no additional information. So the project narrative, we look at it, it's 25-page maximum. We have really detailed rubrics, which we'll look at here in a little bit, that we really encourage you to read them through and know, what it's going to take to get on in that rubric scale from 1 to 5. 5 being this is the best case scenario, and down to 1. They make it easy on your reviewer. When possible, provide information where it's requested. Don't refer back to something else. Just give it clean and precise. Okay, we ask that you use SMART goals. A table is a great way to break down SMART goals and makes scoring easier. And we'll go over SMART goals in a little bit. And what is your school's plan to meet historically underserved students? There's a definition on the Oregon Charter Schools website. Required elements of your budget. Okay. The applicants must complete the following 3 tabs in the budget form. So it's one Excel book, and there's 3 different tabs. There's the cover sheet, the planning grant budget, and what you expect are your equipment budget. So this would be things like your scanner would be listed there that's required, any kind of computer for the initial startup, a printer for the initial startup, those basic equipment pieces. Okay, the proposed budget must support the grant project goals. So each expenditure must point specifically to a goal. There must be evidence of clear relationship, right, between the identified goals, proposed activities, and how these funds will be spent. Okay, you must use the forms that are provided. So general instructions for the budget. If there's any single line item that's more than $1,000, details need to be given for that. Okay, break down that line item exceeding $1,000 with notations of quantity explanation necessary to clarify how the funding will be expended. A request for professional development for the board and or your staff must include what type of training it is specifically. Who are the expected attendees? What are your expected outcomes? What type of topics will be covered? If you have a provider that you're looking at, give us the specifics. And what it would be a plan for sustaining this training as time goes on and the grant period has ended. Okay, proposed budgets must adhere strictly to the federal policy, that is to supplement, not supplant, any federal, state, and local monies being provided to the school. And again, the specifics are there in the citation for ESSA. The following restrictions are a result of this policy. Okay, these are really important. Allowable salaries, benefits are limited to the administrator and 1 key staff person for the 3-month period prior to the school opening. Okay, instructional salaries are not allowed under this grant. For these salaries, we require a time and effort documentation for all school and contract personnel compensated with the funds. So in other words, if you have a teacher that is developing curriculum specifically for your charter, that teacher may be, their salary can be reimbursed if they keep a proper time and effort log with what they were doing. Okay, you may be asked to revise and resubmit the budget several times before final approval. So don't be dismayed at that. Okay, here's a sad but long list of items that cannot be funded through this grant. Okay, if your application includes any of these items, it will be rejected and you will ask to resubmit your budget. Okay, so no grant oversight expenses, no food and beverage expenses, excluding per diems for travel. Capital expenses such as remodeling, technology leases, elevators, water main, valves, you see the list there. Those are not allowed. No professional dues or memberships of any kind. No employee hiring or recruitment expenses such as a placement firm or travel for prospective employees. Non-educational, non-informative, promotional, novelty items for advertising, events, or recruiting. Okay, so costs of continuing education credits for professional development coursework, nope. No gift certificates, no alcoholic beverages, no school apparel for staff or students, fines and penalties and lobbying not be reimbursed. Okay, expenses outside the scope of the school's charter or K-12 education. Okay, in other words, before after school programs, preschool, not reimbursable. Activities related to the nonprofit organization, but not the charter school, will not be reimbursable. Out-of-state travel is not reimbursable unless it can be clearly demonstrated that the goal of the travel cannot be accomplished inside the state, okay? And absolutely no out-of-country travel will be permitted. There are references here for you to get some guidance from the Oregon Department of Education Program Budgeting and Accounting Manual. And also the electronic code for federal regulations is here. So if you need further guidance on those, I encourage you to use these links for your guidance. So each charter school enrollment policy must include a lottery protocol. Okay, so you need to submit the charter school's board adopted enrollment policy and procedures. The policy or the procedure should clearly describe how the lottery will be administered, how families will be informed of the opportunity to submit an application to the lottery, how families will be informed about the outcomes of the lottery. So if your charter school is interested in using a weighted lottery as allowed by SB 820, there will be a process to review and approve your procedure prior to the implementation. So if this is something that interests you, contact us outside of the grant application and we'll have Kate work with you on that. Okay, your procurement policy needs to be provided to us, and it must conform to this uniform guidance here that's provided. If your school does not have a DUNS number, this is a federal number that would identify your school, you can apply for it at this link. Okay, your marketing plan is going to show how you plan to attract families. It should include at least the following, okay? A clear description of how the school will inform the community about its enrollment process, its procedures, and its deadlines. Clear description of how the marketing plan is multimodal, okay, and increases access to the charter school for all prospective students. A specific plan of outreach to historically underserved student populations. A clear description of the target student population the school intends to serve, and the planned efforts to engage prospective families in those communities. And also a description of the opportunities prospective families will have to ask questions, get information, and tour your facility. The grant management plan. Okay, part of the application will be to submit the school's plan to manage the performance and financial aspects of the grant, including how grant project goals will be tracked and assessed. Okay, your plan should include at least the following components. An overall description of how the grant will be managed, including key personnel assigned to manage specific aspects of the grant. The school's plan to be compliant, strategic, and responsible with the financial and business aspects of the grant. The schools plan to have sufficient cash on hand to front initial grant expenditures until you get the reimbursement. The capability of the governing board to oversee the performance and financial components of the grant, and the capability of the governing board to submit required reports on grant activities, a detailed description of how performance will be measured against the grant project goals, including specific targets, measures, metrics for each goal, as well as a timeline for the implementation and completion of each project. The schools plan for financial and programmatic sustainability after the grant period ends, okay, and that grant funds are no longer available. Okay. You will also need to attach a copy of the charter school's conflict of interest policy. The assurance and certification form, okay. Charter schools, district partnerships that accept funding through the Oregon Charter School Grant Program agree to the assurances listed in the assurance and certification form. This form is within the body of the RFA. Okay, so here we have some questions and some answers. And so hopefully these are some questions you've already got in your mind and these will answer them. Okay. Oregon was previously not an SEA, a state educational agency, in relation to the federal charter school grants program. Does this new grant program represent a movement back towards being an SEA? Yes, it does. Since the Oregon Department of Education has received the SEA, CSP, so State Educational Association, and the CSP is Charter School Program Grant, all charter schools must apply to ODE for all CSP grants and are no longer eligible to apply to the feds directly for non-SEA grants during the grant period. So if you've made it past all those acronyms, good. When will we be notified if we will receive a grant? So you will be notified, you receive notification after the grant application has been reviewed by at least 3 peer reviewers and the ODE staff. Okay, the application deadline may result in a longer wait, depending on how many come in. Okay, so how we need your help is if you submit your intent to submit an eligibility form 4 weeks prior to your intended applications. So when will you be notified if you receive a grant? Well, we close the grants on the 28th. They'll be reviewed. Our goal is to start notifying folks by mid-November at the latest. Okay, when will funding begin? As soon as all of your application requirements are met and the contract has been completely executed by our procurement department. How long will the reimbursements take? Our turnaround time? It's usually 5 to 7 business days, okay? We do ask that you folks establish your ACH, makes things faster than having hard checks go in the mail. Okay. Should the 3-year budget include grant funds? Should we incorporate the requested funds into the budget? Yes. The 3-year budget submitted with the grant application should incorporate the requested grant funds. Our goal here at ODE is to see alignment and supportive budget evidence of the grant activities throughout the comprehensive operation of the school. Okay, the school will also submit the grant budget worksheet of just grant fund expenditures. Okay, is portable furniture an allowable cost? Yes, it is. Okay, you cannot use the funds to purchase or construct permanent furniture and fixtures, but yes, portable ones you can. Okay, what falls under grant oversight expenses? Generally, this would include any time dedicated to managing the grant and could include processing grant claims, reporting, participating in monitoring visits, etc. Okay. If we use a third party for tracking the grant money spent, is this reimbursable? No, this is considered grant oversight. Okay, question. I'm interested in learning more about the allowable salaries, benefits, guideline. Is the administrator or the school administrator, i.e. director or principal, or the grant administrator, are we permitted to hire a temporary employee to assist with carrying out the goals of the projects related to the grant? Okay. The administrator that's referenced in the RFA, is the school principal. Okay. You may hire someone to oversee the grant, but you may not pay for that person or general grant oversight costs with grant funds. You may supplement salaries with stipends or use funds for additional work for grant activities like curriculum development, professional development of other staff members. Okay, can you provide examples of standards relating to reducing or eliminating exclusionary discipline practices? Okay, we do have a webinar posted on the ODE Charter School Program webpage, and we encourage you to go there and you can get some guidance with respect to this. How can we describe that a board is qualified to oversee compliance with federal regulations? Okay, so provide examples of any previous board members have with federal grant oversight. So a resume of sorts of what that board member has done, okay, and other experience detailing or dealing with federal regulations. Okay, what are the demographics you want to know about our community? What are the pertinent for the grant? Okay, any demographic, okay, primary demographics will be for the district in which the charter school is located. Additionally, if the charter school is targeting a specific population in a specific neighborhood or geographic boundary, then the demographics of that specific area would need to be included. Okay, what does target student population mean? Okay, would that be grade levels in districts, surrounding areas? Okay, so target population refers to any specific group of students the charter school intends to serve, okay? The charter school may open with the intent of serving a specific demographic or geographic group of students. If that is the intent of your charter school, you should describe that target group. However, even when targeting a specific group, charter schools may not practice any type of exclusionary enrollment, okay? All right, so that's what I have for you today. And I see some questions over here by Damien. It says, found, okay, the cover page is included in the conflict of interest policy in appendices or in the body. It's within the body of the RFA. Let me know if you can't find it and I'll give you specifics. Okay, the next question was the fully executed contract you just referred to, which will be reviewed. Is that the grant application review process for the purposes of the grant application or the charter contract? The fully executed contract is what is required between you and your developer. So at the time you apply, if you're within the final stages of getting that completely executed, then you're good. But you have to have it pretty much outlined and ready to go by the time the award would take place. Let me know if that doesn't answer your question. While I'm waiting to see if there's any other questions, what I do want to do is take a moment and show you one of our rubrics, if you haven't had a chance to look at them. Let's see. Okay, so I put up here on the screen for you this is page 1 of our rubrics. So if you look at this one here for the planning grant, okay, so for the very first section, section A, okay, the executive summary should briefly introduce readers to the charter school. Okay, we want you to include your school's overall vision, the expected demographics, the expected location, summarize the grant project goals, and explain briefly how they will support the vision of the school. Okay, so then the required criteria is listed there for you, each independently. So in order to score a 5, which is the best scenario, that means that you meet all the criteria that is listed directly above. Okay, the descriptions are clear, they're concise. We don't need to have any type of questions to clarify. Okay, this is a 5 for this section, and it goes down accordingly. So this gives you an idea of how the rubrics look. When these are scored by our peer reviewers, they will award the score between 1 and 5, and they will list for you a strength and a weakness in each section. Should there be anything below a 5, they will list for you a weakness. Even giving a 5, there could be a minor weakness that the peer reviewer sees. They might just encourage you in, okay? So this is, all of these here is for the project narrative, and that goes all the way down by section. As you can see, each section is clearly detailed for you. Each section shows when the points, what the points are and what they are for. Some sections will have right here what we call priority points, and this is when you can show a direct part of your goals that supports underserved students. So then the next tab, this is all in the same Excel book, there's for your appendices, okay, and those are here in the same manner. So clearly identify what is the requirement of this section. And then in this case, there is evidence of clear relationship between the identified goals, the proposed grant activities, and how the funds will be spent. So that one thing here, if you meet all of those, that's a 5, right? Then this last one is the score sheet. So if you click on this, you can see the total points possible for each section, and goes down through the appendices. It will total automatically when those reviewers put in your points, and a minimum of 100 points is required for award. So you really want to work to those rubrics. Do I have any questions on these rubrics? No questions? Okay, well, I want to thank you all for attending. I look forward to helping you in any way I can. Oh, I have one question. How different is this planning RFA from the one first given in 2015? Actually, there's not much difference. We had to have it go through a refining plan with our procurement department, but basically it's got all the same components. We did retool these rubrics in order to make them clearer, more well-defined, with the goal of assisting the applicants to clearly see what they're going to be evaluated on. So we're hoping that this will help applicants have a really clear detail of what is going to be reviewed. That answers your question. Any other questions? Well, thank you all so much for being here. I know it's a busy time with your schools just getting up and going this time of year. We do appreciate you taking your time out, and we very much look forward to seeing your grant applications and how ODE can partner via the Charter School Grant Program with your charter school. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, everyone.